Alright, so now that you're at the stage where you have everything textured, and this is just, not the texture you would use, you've built one, but just to show you an example, the texturing's done, the lighting's done, whatever else you're going to be doing to the scene is done. So for this assignment, what I want is in your render settings, I've taken this and left it at OpenEXR, zips is fine. We're doing a single frame, and the resolution on this is going to be for print. Okay, so I'm going to go into here, and you'll see that there's actually like letter and legal and tabloid. I'm going to go down to 8x10, and that gives me a 2400 by 3000 pixel image, and then my resolution is 3000 pixels. Okay, so that's good there. Under quality, I've turned up my overall and I've turned up my lighting quality to create a nice smooth transition inside here. Now, one of the things, if you're getting still a lot of grain in your image, grabbing your lights and under the mental ray section, telling it to be visible will definitely help kind of eliminate some of that grain. Okay, so just be aware of that. Obviously, you want to play with these numbers. You may not have to have yours as high as mine, but I do have a very reflective mirror back here, so that's where I have that. Then under my scene, under passes, I'm going to turn on two passes. One of them is going to be depth, so I've checked that box. The other one is ambient occlusion. I've checked that box. And I've also adjusted this ambient occlusion max distance to 5. It's really going to depend on your scene size. If you look at the little grid units here, you'll kind of get an idea of how big you need to go. If this scene was enormous, I may have to go bigger to really see something in there. All right, but this scene is kind of small, so I stuck with maybe around 2 or 3 or 5 at the highest would be a good number to go to. Okay, and then everything else should be good. Now, when I frame this, I'm going to go to my resolution gate, which is this guy, the little blue dot, and I can't really see the top. It looks like it's coming out pretty square. So I'm going to go to View, I'm going to go to my camera settings, and I'm going to say Fill Vertically. Okay. Now this box here is what's going to render. So of course I want to fill this like that. Okay. Now I'm going to be putting a title in here, maybe some other stuff, whatever. So I want to get a good framing inside the shot, but also leave some room for any other stuff I may do. Now I also can grab the camera here and set this focal length to maybe 20. That gives me just a little bit more exaggerated perspective in there. Okay. Now keep in mind too, if I shoot it down low like this, it gives me a different feel than shooting it like that. Okay. So just be aware of those kinds of things as you're doing it. All right. So let's say I go with something like this. I'm not really liking how this is turning out to be like backwards. So I'm going to go to my view, I'm going to go to my camera tools, I'm going to go to my azimuth elevation tool, and I'm just rotating that a little bit and pulling it down. And that just helps me kind of isolate, the direction that was causing that. All right, so there we go. I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to hit the render button. All right, so there's my rendering, and I actually downsized it because it was taking way too long for this video. So it's 4 minutes for this. Now you're going to render it out at the full quality and all that, so there it is. So if I go to my file here and I go to my load render pass, and I go to ambient occlusion, what we should see is a black and white image. Black in these areas where the objects are making contact with each other. Okay, so you can see black right here, black right there. Okay, gray coming up, white here, white here, white here. Perfect. I go to layer, I go to depth, you're not going to see anything. Okay, now you can try to play with the exposure and sometimes you can see something, but typically there's no issue with the depth working, it just kind of works. So that's it. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Nuke, and you're just going to get a crash course on how to use Nuke. Alright, so this is the Nuke interface. Here's what our work is going to look like. Here's where we're going to do a lot of our work. And then here's where all of our properties are. Okay, so the way that it works is we have these little sliders, and I can move them around. And we're just going to go real quick into this. Then we'll get further in on other assignments. So I'm going to move my mouse over into this area, the node graph, and I'm going to hit R for read. Then I'm going to go find my product. Here's my product right here. So I'm just going to hit open. And in order for me to see this, I have to connect it to a viewer. So you see there's a number 1 right there. So if I click on this specific node right here and hit 1, it connects it to that viewer. Okay, now the controls are similar to Maya. Alt left mouse button kind of moves me around. Alt middle mouse button will zoom in and out, and that is the same for down here as well. Alright, so now what I need to do with this is I need to take this and I need to pull out that ambient occlusion. So I'm going to click on this node, I'm going to hit tab, and I'm going to type in shuffle. Okay, then I'm just going to pull this off to the side. Okay, you'll see organization is going to be one of those things that we need to have set up. So with the shuffle right here, I'm going to rename it AO_shuffle. And in this in one, I'm going to choose ambient occlusion. There's my ambient occlusion. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to multiply it times this. Okay. Now you'll see that this 1 is connected into this. If I want to see just this one, I hit 1. Hit this one, 1. Hit this one, 1. So you can see how I'm shuffling between these. Okay. So I'm going to take this and hit M for merge. I'm going to take the B. Okay. B is A is the top and B is the bottom. So I'm going to grab the B and drop it onto here. So you can see how I've connected the arrows so that it's basically getting one bit of information from here, one bit of information from there. And the 1 here is connected to this, so that's what I'm seeing. So it doesn't look any different because it's just set to over. So I'm going to set this to multiply. Okay. Now let's see if there's a difference. So I'm going to click on merge and hit D for disable. Okay, and I'm just D, and you can see there's definitely a difference in what that merge is doing to the scene. It definitely makes the items seem a little bit more grounded, makes them pop a little bit more. Okay, so that's what that merge is going to do. Now I could also, let's say I put the merge on and it's too strong. I could pull it back with this mix. So you can see the mix is now gone, it's now halfway, it's now fully there. So that's what that's going to do. So now I'm going to click the merge again. I'm going to hit tab and type in Z to focus. Okay, and I'm just going to zoom out a touch and just kind of move these things down a little bit. Just give me a little bit more room. Now in this, it's using all the channels and blurring them. That's what's happening here. The depth channel is the depth Z. That's what it's reading as far as what the depth is. So let's take a second and look at the depth. So I'm going to click on this thing here and hit 1. Then I'm going to go up here to where it says RGBA and choose depth. Okay. Now you can't really see anything in here, but if you look at the red, you can see that that red number is changing. And what that's doing is it's giving us the depth. How far from the camera are these objects? So as I pull this to the left, you can see that it's actually reading those objects. Okay. Just click that again. Change this back to RGBA, click back on Z to focus, hit 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this focal point and I'm going to drop it onto the object I want in focus. And you can see, scoot that down, zoom in, you can see that now this object is in focus and then it kind of softly blurs it out. Now just to kind of help get the math correct, 'cause it looks like there's a little halo around it, I'm going to change my math to direct. Okay, and that just gives you a little bit better result than the default one. Alright, so then again I can move this focal point to the mirror, and now the mirror is in focus. I can move it to the razor, and now the razor is in focus. Right here the razor is in focus. I move it down to the tip of the razor, you'll see that I get a different focus setup. Okay. Now you may not want to have it as strong, so here's where we can play with some of these. So I can take the depth of field up, which is going to put more items in focus. Okay. Now this number doesn't stop at 1. I could type in bigger numbers. I could just type in 5. There we go. And now we have a bigger radius being in focus. I could also come down to here where these are the actual blurring amounts and pull that down as well. All right. Now just like on the merge, I'm going to grab the Z to focus and hit D to disable it and see if there's a result. Now if you look at the edge of this, there's a little dotted line. That's how much it's blurring. So you can tell it's not even blurring it very much. So maybe I want to pull this up a little bit more to really emphasize that. Now again, this is kind of like an artistic thing where you have to look at it and see what's going to look better, what's going to make this item kind of pop a little bit more. There you go. And I like how it's softening. You may not be able to see it really good in the video, but it's softening this kind of shadow in the background. Okay. So that's cool. I'm going to leave it like that. I'm going to close all these properties just by clicking this X up here. All right, so that's good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to write it out. So we read our file in. I'm going to click on the Z to focus, hit Tab, and type in write. And under the file, I'm going to write this out into my folder. I'm going to call it final product dot TIF. Okay, so I'm writing it out as a TIFF. I'm going to say render. It'll say render input 1 to 1. I only have 1 frame, so that's all it's going to render. And there we go. So now what I can do is go into Photoshop and do the rest of that work. Alright, so here is my image from Nuke. And you'll see it looks pretty much the same that it did inside of Nuke. Shouldn't be anything crazy. So now what I can do is just add some text to this. So of course I want to add the title of this. So the one that I kind of used as mine was SPAP. Come on. There we go. So I can put a little title here. And then a little subtitle. See what I'm typing. Let me shrink it down. This is the best shaving cream in the world. And I'm going to switch over to my paragraph because my settings probably have my character. Yes, a really big lighting there. There we go. All right. So I'm just throwing something on here, but obviously you want to spend some more time kind of developing what this is going to look like. Again, you can use reference from the internet to figure out what magazine ads typically would have for that. Now you don't want to get these things too close to the edge because if you were to print them, you know, that may get cut off. So you want to leave yourself a little bit of room right there. Make this bigger. Okay, and then obviously I could add some coloration to this. So let's say a gradient. Some color overlay, which is just normal, yes. And the gradient overlay, which is going to be a multiply. There we go. So that looks kind of neat. Back to the gradient. Pulling up that opacity just a touch. There we go. I can add a drop shadow on that. There we go. Okay. And then for this text down here, normal. There we go. A little drop shadow. Okay. Now, obviously spend more time than I'm doing on this, but that's the idea, is that now we have something that looks a little bit more like a magazine type ad instead of just our plain product. Now we could also take this background, double click it, and hit Control T, and we could move it or scale it or do whatever to kind of reframe how that thing is lined up. Okay? That way it's kind of not in the way anymore because it was in the way a second ago. And then the last thing I'm going to do with this is I'm going to take my layer 0 and then duplicate it. And I'm going to change this mode to multiply. See how dark it gets. Then I'm going to put a layer mask on it, which is that button. And then I'm just going to go and paint black right in the center. Okay, really soft, really light, and you'll see what that does. It just kind of helps frame that thing a little bit more. Okay, gives us a little vignette around it. And then I can always pull this opacity down if that's still a little too harsh. Alright, so there we go. So now I'm going to just save this as my final product. Save as Sarcona product magazine ad. Fall 2015. Okay, I don't need layers. You should definitely save a copy of for yourself that has the layers, but the one you're going to turn in, it just needs to be an as a copy. No alpha channels, no layers, just that. Hit save, and then that's what you're turning in to me. Okay, so that's it. Now again, going a little bit further, you can see in here I didn't require that you had like a little prop here or a little prop there. Those are things that I added into my scene just to add a little bit more into the scene. Okay, so just be aware of those kinds of things. You can add extra stuff to this. You know, this area here might look blank. Maybe I want to add something to the background inside of Photoshop or inside of Maya or inside of wherever to get that. Okay, so that's the remainder of that assignment.